Miami's next move has been revealed in a offseason that should be loaded with moves for this Miami Heat organization. After missing out on star Kevin Durant, it seems like they are still going to be buyers this offseason. And based off a brand new report, we have an idea of how these talks are going to get started. We'll break down all of the new information surrounding this Miami Heat organization on this episode of Heat Digest. But first, before we get to the news and information, please stop and remember to subscribe to the channel if you're a part of the near 80% watching this video not currently subscribed to the channel. We do appreciate the love and support, so thank you guys. But now let's get to it and break down. Can Andrew Wiggins be the key this offseason for Miami? Now, I don't mean that in the sense that could he be the key piece that Miami holds on to this offseason going into next season to really unlock the rest of this franchise and be the key cornerstone to this franchise. I mean it in the sense that could Andrew Wiggins be the piece we see moved for a substantial name coming back to this Miami Heat organization? Now, based off this article written and published by Brett Siegel, he goes on to break down a lot of different points, including what this Miami Heat's offseason should look like now that they've missed out on Kevin Durant. Now, if you have been living under a rock and you simply did not see it, Kevin Durant signed with the Houston Rockets. Now, in doing so and through the entire process, the Kevin Durant saga, we discussed how the Rockets seemed like one of the only real threats to the Miami Heat to acquire Kevin Durant this offseason, as they had so many young pieces and draft capital that they could possibly move in exchange for Kevin Durant. Now, in the overall package that the Phoenix Suns got in return for Durant, I'm here to say I feel like they bit the bait. The only problem was they did it for the Rockets rather than the Miami Heat, and they failed to budge in doing so. And we saw really just how the Miami Heat didn't want to give up on Kel'el Ware and Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Nikola Jovic and these other really good role players for this Miami Heat organization just to go out and acquire a 37-year-old Kevin Durant. So, what is Miami going to do now? Well, Brett would go on to write in this article, teams are wondering what is next with the Miami Heat after striking out on the Durant trade. Miami continues to make Andrew Wiggins available in trade talks and would be willing to part with the 20th overall pick in this year's NBA draft for an upgrade alongside Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo, sources said. Brett would go on to say Thomas Sorber and Danny Wolf are drawing a lot of attention in the 13 to 19 region of this year's draft. Should either player fall out of the lottery, multiple teams will be expressing interest to try and move up for them. With the Miami Heat holding that 20th overall pick, we've discussed on this channel previously, discussing how the Sacramento Kings could be a very, very desperate team in a position to go out there and bite the bait like we were hoping for with Phoenix and Kevin Durant, to go out there and acquire the 20th overall pick and may be willing to leverage. If Miami is willing to leverage their 20th overall pick, they could get an ample amount of resources back in return from Sacramento, who could be in a bit of a desperate window to acquire one of these draft picks this year, as Miami has a lot of young talent to begin with already and may not be looking to add another young piece to a team they are looking to win with next season. So, what does that mean? If Andrew Wiggins is available and he's being shopped currently, what are teams looking to acquire in Andrew Wiggins? Well, obviously from this past year, we know he was very good for this Miami Heat team. He wasn't an all-star. He wasn't a MVP caliber player, if you will. But on both ends of the floor, he was definitely competent and was able to hold his own both on the offense and defensive side of the ball, regardless of whether or not he was in Golden State on the West Coast or in Miami on the East Coast for one half of the season or the other. And again, the gold at the bottom of your screen highlights both of those years, or the single year from last year, and both tenures with the Golden State Warriors as well as the Miami Heat. I'll change the frame there so you can actually see the entirety of the stat lines. Overall, a very productive season from Andrew Wiggins. Not really all that we were hoping for in Miami, as we needed him to be the Jimmy Butler-esque type of player, where he'd be the number one contributor on the offensive end, allowing some pressure to come off of Bam Adebayo's back, as well as Tyler Hero, especially on the offensive end of the floor. We saw bits and pieces of that this past year, but nothing that was going to really propel this Heat team over a massive hump, as, again, there were a lot of very good teams, not only in the West, but as well as in the East, like the Cavs, like the Indiana Pacers, like the Boston Celtics. The list goes on of respectable teams that the Heat would have had to go up against and get through this past year. And with Wiggins not being just the end-all be-all type of guy for this Heat team. It's not going to work, and it seems like they're more than willing to shop him this offseason in hopes to level up their player in what they would have in comparison to what they had last year in Andrew Wiggins. Now, in the sense of a return for Jimmy Butler, it's upsetting Jonathan Kuminga was not one of those pieces, as it seems like he could be a respectable piece added this offseason for the Miami Heat. It's just going to be interesting what that trade package may require, and if Andrew Wiggins would want to go back to Golden State, and if that dynamic would even be considered to work. I'm going to say no, but again, Andrew Wiggins' value could be extremely valuable to across the board of the NBA. Only 30 years old, being 6'7", with a great wingspan. We mentioned how he is respectable on the defensive side of the ball, and despite being 30 years old, he still has a lot of basketball out in front of him. Being as athletic and as lengthy as he is, he still maintains a lot of plus side value for a lot of teams that could look to go out and acquire someone like Andrew Wiggins. Now, when it comes to the contract of Andrew Wiggins, currently we are in the 2024-2025 NBA season, so that will be the end of this season. If you look, 2025-2026, Andrew Wiggins is going to be owed $28.2 million before going into the final year of his contract, which will be then in a player option in 2026-2027, where he will be owed $30.7 million by whatever team he then opts into that contract with, whether it is with Miami or another organization across the league. It'll be interesting, as Andrew Wiggins being owed $30 million isn't that pricey, especially for a one-year rental, but if he does opt in, again, you'll be paying a second year of that contract, again, for another $30 million before he would become an unrestricted free agent the following season. Whether or not teams are lining up to grab Andrew Wiggins is going to be interesting. I think he could be a respectable piece for a championship-level contender, as he does present that level of gameplay in the sense of his overall size, the overall length, his ability to do things on both sides of the floor while also not being the number one guy. He could be a number 2, 3, or 4 on any legitimate team and be a substantial contributor to that organization. Teams like the Sacramento Kings, teams like the Milwaukee Bucks should be in the works, and Miami should be on the phones with those two teams, seeing what that 20th overall pick plus Andrew Wiggins could possibly suffice in a trade. I think there's going to be a lot of possible suitors outside of teams like Phoenix, as well as Houston and Golden State. I think anyone else would be open and willing to having a phone call with this Miami Heat team for possibly a very respectable complimentary player in Andrew Wiggins. Let me know down below what your thoughts and opinions are on the possibility of trading Andrew Wiggins. Would you guys want to see Wiggins no longer a part of this Miami Heat organization? And if he were to be traded, what exactly are you looking back in return? Is it a Malik Monk and a Trey Lyles plus a draft pick if we obviously added Wiggins in that 20th overall pick? Do you think that would be respectable? Or are you looking to make a major splash, adding Jaquez, Jovic, Ware, Wiggins in the 20th overall pick, and try to acquire someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo? Let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Heat Digest.